I'm John Smith. I've been playing guitar for 33 years. Well, we always had music on in the house. My dad worked in classical music, but always kept a lot of other music around. And he would have been one of the very few people who bought Nick Drake's records when they came out at the time. And he always loved folk music and was always playing folk or blues. As I was growing up, my early memories were Paul Simon, Ry Cooder, B.B. King, Eric Clapton. And then my mum was into Maria Callas and Joni Mitchell. So there was this lovely balance of different types of music, but I always skewed towards the sound of a guitar. Whenever I heard, in particular, blues music, the sound of Muddy Waters or B.B. King playing an electric guitar was always exciting to me. I think the first time I really understood that it was an instrument in someone's hands was, hearing Jimi Hendrix for the first time. And Dad saying, okay, this guy changed everything about guitar. And so I sat and I listened to Jimi. I must have been 9 or 10. And around that time, my dad played me Kashmir by Led Zeppelin. And that was my first experience of really having my whole sort of perception of music blown wide open and realising that there's this other world that you can go into. And of course, Jimmy Page on the guitar and that feeling of understanding that maybe this other world is accessible via the guitar. I suppose shortly after that, I would have been 10 or 11. I lost interest in piano. I'd actually started playing piano when I was about 5, and I was going out and playing piano in sort of exhibitions and competitions. I was winning piano awards when I was 7 or 8 for playing classical piano. But I never loved it. I always really loved music, and piano was just the only thing that I knew, but it didn't feel very exciting to me. It was just something creative to do. I was either always drawing or playing piano or, painting or whatever it was. Then I got into drums, but we didn't have a drum kit, so that didn't last too long. I picked up the guitar off the wall basically when I was tall enough, because there were guitars hanging, around the house, and I just picked one up, and I suppose I just became aware of it all at once as soon as I was ready, I feel that one day I was just aware of the guitar, really. And I picked it up. I didn't know what to do with it. It was a bit out of tune. And my dad had one of those panpipe tuners where hoo, 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 hoo. And so he tuned it and said, this is how you do it, and got it in tune. And he sat me down and showed me C, F, and G. And that was it. Overnight, I became a guitar player. I just locked myself away, and every weekend day, every night after school, I just sat in my room and I played guitar, and that's all I cared about. It's all I wanted to do from then on. I suppose the initial attraction to the guitar is feeling that if you pick it up, you suddenly identify with your heroes, I thought that if I picked up the red Squier Strat that was hanging on the wall, then I immediately belonged to the same club as Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton. But actually, when I started taking it really seriously, I suppose after a few months, I realised that actually there's a solace in the 6 strings of a guitar. There's this space, this sort of, I don't know, I'm not a religious person really, but I believe that there's something quite sacred about the space between the 6 strings of a guitar and the air that moves between them. And I realised early on, actually, this is my home. This is where I feel completely like myself and completely comfortable. And so that became as much of an attraction as the desire just to get good at the guitar and to, maybe one day be a famous guitar player like Eric Clapton. It was more that I just felt really comfortable doing it. And at that time, being 10, 11, 12, I wasn't having an easy ride at school. I had an unusually difficult time actually at school. I didn't have many friends. For whatever reason, I just didn't get on at school at all. And so when I went home and I picked up the guitar, I just felt all the stuff that happened at school washed away, and I felt completely at peace playing the guitar. And it's been that way ever since. Whatever's going on in my life, no matter how difficult, if I pick up the guitar, I plug into something that is above and beyond me, and I just feel completely at home and relaxed, I had a great piece of advice once from Kelly Jo Phelps, who just told me that as long as you touch the guitar, once a day, if you're not feeling at peace with it, if you're feeling detached from the guitar, or if it's getting harder to stay committed, just make sure you put your hands on it once a day, just to let it know and to allow it to reassure you that you still are a guitar player and you still are committed to music. And that's worked for me. The guitar sort of means the same thing that it always has. It's this kind of gateway to a different world, but it's also the tool with which I make a living and go to work. I put it in its case, I carry it, I put it on the plane, I take it to the gig, I sound check, I warm up with it. It goes next to my hotel bed at night. It's with me all the time. And then when I'm at home, it's there on the stand, just waiting to be played while I do all the other stuff you have to do as a working musician. If I get time in between doing all the other stuff, the accounts, the logistics, the video editing, the, beard combing, whatever it is that you've got to do to present yourself as a musician and make it work. I'm always looking for the moment where I can pick up the guitar and just commune and be at peace again. Danny Thompson said this to me, and he said, all the driving, all the travelling, sitting in airports, doing the tax return, all the graft, that's what I get paid for, but I play bass for free. And I thought, that's it. That's exactly it. And he said that to me 10 years ago, and it made such sense. I've kind of lived with that ever since. Whenever I'm sitting at the desk and booking hotels or planning a tour route with my agent, or kind of figuring out how the hell am I going to pay the bills this month, all that stuff is what I get paid to do. But when I pick up the guitar, I realise how incredibly fortunate I am to do that, for a living. And I feel like that's the bit I do for free. When I get on stage and I start having an emotional exchange with an audience, I get to do that. I've said it a number of times on stage, what a tremendous privilege this is. And I really mean it. I mean, it's just so overwhelming sometimes to know that you are able to get on stage, sing songs, and create this intangible exchange of whatever it is. I hate to use the word energy, but there's love in the room. I've been at shows where I've really felt it really overwhelmingly, and if you're lucky, you get a minute of that kind of, when you're in this sort of flow state and things are moving in the air and you can feel it, and you look at the audience and they're singing along, or maybe someone's in tears, or maybe someone's just like looking at you, realizing that they're completely in love with the song, or whatever it is. It sounds daft me talking about it, because I don't want to sound egotistical or whatever, but when that is happening, that's the most beautiful moment that you can imagine as a performer. So you just have to try and keep your energy up, stay focused, work with some lightness in your heart if you can, and try not to get bogged down by all of the stuff that you don't like doing, so that when you get on stage, you can just have that electrifying moment of communion with whatever it is that's moving in the room, wherever it's coming from. Let it in, put your antenna up, and just try and transmit as much of that feeling as you can. And when that happens, you come away from the stage going, something happened tonight. I feel incredible. People leave sometimes going, that was great. That's, I loved that show. It's not just about someone being on stage doing something good and people enjoying it. There's something else going on in the room. And I'm always pursuing that, whatever it is. And the older I get and the further into this career I get, the more I realise it's pretty much the only thing I care about. So I'll work as hard as I can to make sure that those opportunities keep coming up and keep presenting themselves. Yeah. There are 2 times where guitar has outweighed everything else, really, in particular. Through my teens, when I was obsessed with guitar and playing every night and playing to my friends every night and sitting in front of speakers in the days of dial-up internet connections, transcribing Nick Drake, figuring out alternate tunings, all that stuff, that was my sort of training. And then when I was 3 weeks off my 18th birthday, I had meningitis B, and I was comatose for a little while. And the doctor said to my mum and dad, don't hold your breath, basically. I was so on the edge. And when I came out, I pulled through. I think I pulled through primarily, my parents' love was really strong, and I had really good friends around that time, 17, 18. I'd left school, I'd left all that shit behind, and I'd found my people who were all really into music. And, we were a really tight bunch, so I felt like I had purpose. I managed to pull through. And then I fell into this tremendous depression, and I suppose it's PTSD. When anyone who's almost died will tell you it takes a toll. You don't realise it sometimes till later. So I was trying to process all of this. This is in the days before mental health was widely discussed, especially for men. And I was a young man. I had some imperfect role models. I didn't talk about my feelings that much. And I thought about killing myself, actually. I went and stood up on the cliffs, and I seriously, I was looking down going, well, maybe this is what happens. And, thankfully I didn't do it that day. I went home and I picked up the guitar, and I kind of played my way out of it. And I just kept playing. And then I realized that I wanted to study music. I had a place, before I had meningitis, I'd got a place to do script writing, because I was also acting. I did the National Youth Theatre and pursued all that stuff, but I found it a bit intense. I love acting and I love the theatre, but at that time in my life I couldn't be around 18-year-old actors. It was just too intense. I preferred the company of musicians at that time. And so I decided I'm going to study music. However, because I'd had meningitis, I didn't really have any A levels. I'd flunked pretty much wholeheartedly. So I went and auditioned for a music performance degree, and they gave me the place. So I moved to Liverpool, and my life kind of started its next chapter in Liverpool. And there I played guitar, and I learned about guitar. And I felt that my years between 18 and 21 were when I decided, after kind of teaching myself how to play, that's when I was really going to take it seriously, because maybe I could do it as a living. And then later, fast forward 20 years to 2020, when COVID hit, there was some more life and death. And I've spoken about this before, and I spoke about it a lot around the release of The Fray in 2021. But yeah, there was a lot of life and death in my family, and I thought I was losing my marbles. So I picked up a guitar, and again, it saved my sanity and it galvanized me, and I wrote my way out of this terrible hole that I was in. I think I've always been a very emotional person. I was a very sensitive boy and young man, and I've kind of moved past a lot of that now, but I felt anytime I took a knock, it was really hard to rationalize why that had happened and deal with it in a sensible way, because I took everything so personally. So when I started gigging, and people would give you very honest feedback, that some people don't hold back, man. There's a lot of interesting people out there who come to gigs and want to tell people exactly what they think on the spot. Some people go home and write reviews, and of course, you read this stuff. I suppose a lot of people don't think face-to-face they're going to affect you because you've been on stage and you're not normal, or they don't think they're going to read the review you've written even though you've tagged them in it. But I see and hear pretty much everything that anyone says about me at some point because I've got an internet connection. And sometimes I drink whiskey and stay up late looking at the internet like everyone else. You know, you start out looking for a new flight case, you end up reading a bad review of yourself, and it sends you into a spiral. And those things can make you want to quit, and then you have to say, well, no, actually, you can't judge yourself based on what others think of you, because that way lies madness. The times I've really wanted to quit are when I felt like my relationship with the guitar has dried up, when musically I'm not drawing inspiration or putting anything into this, you know, this incredible tool that has served millions of people down the years. If I feel like I'm not doing anything with it, then yeah, I dry up and I feel like I want to stop. And in those times, like I say, it used to be an existential problem, and I would seek advice, you know, and quite often my big brothers in music have talked me off the ledge and given me good advice. Kelly Joes was the best advice. Just make sure you touch it once a day. You know, when you're in love with this thing, it's for life. And so you have to just remind each other that you love each other. Just hold on, you know, once a day. I'm too far in now to stop. At least that's how I feel today, you know, because right now I'm in love with this thing, and I feel that this is my life, and I'm incredibly fortunate. If I were to stop, I'd be doing the guitar a disservice, and I'd be letting myself down. There's nothing else out there for me. Life is tough. Anyone who is living properly will tell you life is tough. And sometimes you have to convince yourself to get out of bed. Terrible things happen all the time. But if you can find something, some kind of anchor, some kind of divining rod in your life that keeps you on track and keeps you happy and keeps you sane, then you've got a life worth living. In my life, irrespective of the beautiful relationships I found, my family and my dear friends, if all of that were to go away, I feel that the guitar would still give me purpose. And for me, that's why guitar, because this tool, this instrument, has kept me sane and happy and healthy through the years, because it's given me something to really live for and aspire to.